Thank you, General Dunford, and congratulations, General Paxton and General Allen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Director of the Defense Health Agency, Vice Admiral Raquel C. Bono, who will introduce you to the 2016 Hero of Military Medicine Ambassador Award honorees.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm standing here because if I stand behind there, all you're going to see is the top of my head, and then it'll look like this podium is talking. I'm very honored to be here. I want to thank the Jackson Foundation for all that they've done for this wonderful evening. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring things full circle for you here tonight. Earlier, we recognized some three pretty fantastic military medicine heroes, Colonel Lenhart, Commander Lang, and Colonel Bailey. And I think it goes without saying that the work they do is just tremendous, and they're very fitting recipients of this honor. And while they all are highly trained and they're no stranger to going forward and doing some really innovative and creative and pretty gutsy things, the reason they do it is the reason I'm up here, is to introduce to you the people that are on the other end of what they do to take care of. And this is where the story gets complete. General Dunford, you said it's about the people. And that's exactly what it is. Each of those physicians that you heard about, while they're very well trained, they do it not only because they have that drive to serve, but because they know that there are people that they are helping. Let me tell you about a few of those people who tonight we're going to be honoring as military heroes in the Ambassador's Award. We have first Captain Ferris Butler, who with the 10th Mountain Division was injured in Iraq and spent a couple of years at Walter Reed, undergoing numerous therapies before he finally succumbed and ended up with a double amputation. I'll also introduce you to Jessica Krensky and Patrick Downs, who were victims of the Boston Marathon bombing, and through their own recovery found their way as SecDef designee recipients of care at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And so the doctors you heard about today are just representative of the other physicians and the other health caregivers that help these three people get to recovery. But the thing that's inspiring about these individuals is what they've done since. Captain Butler, after his recovery, went on to get his MBA, start his own realty company, and is working on a foundation with his wife, who, by the way, he met at Walter Reed when she was volunteering during his recovery. In medicine, we take care of all domains. And so he's one of our recipients tonight. Jessica and Patrick, they're now married. They ran the Boston Marathon together, and they were both injured. After recovering from those injuries, they've gone on to overcome some of those injuries themselves. And this year, Patrick again ran the Boston Marathon, and this time Jessica was waiting and cheering for him at the end. So I think that you'll agree that when you see their stories, when you hear their stories, this is why we do this. And this is where you can see the benefit of military medicine. So it's a great honor to be here tonight to share these stories with you and share this video that you're about to see. Thank you.
We were dating for 7 or 8 years before we got engaged. Or we got married August 25th of 2012.
That Marathon Monday is the biggest party day of the year in Boston. And so everyone ends up going or feels connected to it in some way. And so we just felt pulled to go and be a part of it too.
Patrick and I lost our left legs the day of the bombing. We woke up and those legs were gone. And then for the next year and a half, it was always this struggle of we're trying to keep it, we might not be able to save it. So that leg was always on the chopping block, frankly. And when the doctors finally told me that they could take pieces from my other parts of my body and try to salvage that side, I thought that meant great. This is great news, something to celebrate. And really, limb salvage for me was one of the most mental, strenuous, painful processes that I've ever been through in my life.
We hit a buried IED as we were driving. The IED came up through the floorboard. It impacted my front driver's side tire, came up through the floorboards and really made a mess of my feet at that time. So I spent 2.5 years at Walter Reed, at the old Walter Reed when it was still in Washington, D.C.
We had some wounded warriors come and visit us about a week or two in when we were, after the bombings. And a number of them had been treated at Walter Reed. And we had always heard about Walter Reed, but never did it dawn on us that it was a place where we could get care.
I spent about 1.5 years going through 52 surgeries trying to save both feet, which ultimately got whittled down to 2 midfoot amputations. That became very clear very quickly over that time that it just simply wasn't going to work. I remember distinctively sitting in physical therapy one day and a single leg below knee amputee ran by me, and he had only been at Walter Reed for about 3 months. And I said, I've got to make a decision here. January of 2008, surgery number 53 was the elective amputation of my left hoof, as we called it. And fast forward to September 2008 was my 54th and final surgery where I did the elective amputation of my right foot.
So by the time Ferris Butler's name was given to me and his number, I had met a number of amputees, and I was in a very dark and depressed place, and I was really losing hope. And I couldn't imagine how talking to one more amputee was going to help me. I figured, they've had their road, I have mine. Certainly, what am I going to have in common with this Army captain? Something made me reach out, and we sat down and we had this long Skype call, and I think I was so surprised how much we had in common and how much I related to his story.
Immediate connection. I mean, we really hit it off from the first 10 minutes we were on. I could certainly understand the things she was going through. So I lent some ideas. As fast as the conversation was going for us and as many topics as we discussed, everything from, hey, should I take my other leg off, to, oh, how do you do this in the wheelchair? We just really covered a whole gauntlet of information. So I could so relate to the issues at hand, even though there was this huge divide between the two of us. I mean, she's, on the civilian side of this thing, I'm looking in from the eyes of a military guy having gone through the exact same situation. In the back of my mind, as our conversation progressed, I just couldn't help but think, I've got to be able to help facilitate this. I've got to know the connections. I mean, this doesn't seem like a big request. Hey, can Jessica come down and you guys spend a half hour with her?
And then from that first visit, Ferris and Laura are two of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met. And it was just the way that they planned this trip for us to come to Walter Reed. It was two people who had literally been in our position. And so they knew how we needed to travel.
I met Jessica and Patrick almost 1.5 years ago on July 16th, 2014. Ferris Butler, a former patient of mine, was able to bring them down for a tour and kind of an informal visit. And when I first met Jessica, she couldn't walk. She had essentially 2 bum wheels because she was having problems on both her then salvaged limb and her residual limb on the left side.
While we were talking to Jessica and Patrick, it became very clear that they were both suffering from their injuries. We kind of put our heads together to see if there was some way that we could help.
When we got the call that it was official, I mean, I think we both cried.
The people who knew us best and followed us the longest knew that this was the answer. They wanted to be able to help us desperately, and they did. They did incredible things for us, but they knew to get to the next level of recovery that this was the place that we needed to come.
But I remember my physical therapist saying, I'm going to hold on to the hope of what an amazing bilateral amputee you're going to be until you can see it for yourself, because it was something I just couldn't even imagine. As many times as I needed to talk this out, Dr. Potter was going to be there, Dr. Pasquino was going to be there, Anne Marie, Kelly, Art, my prosthetist. I think that it was really a two-way street of everyone feeling like we had truly exhausted everything before taking this very permanent step.
Most emotional moment was when Jessica was at a crossroads where she had to decide, was she going to continue to keep her limb or without having the amputation, or continue to go through limb salvage. It's a difficult decision, and it's a definite decision because you can't go back from it. But we put her in touch with people that have been in similar situations, same circumstances, and they all 90% said that they were thankful that they had the amputation.
Prior to making the choice to amputate her second leg, Jessica and Patrick went away to the beach where they used to actually vacation when they were first dating and married, so that she could put her foot in the ocean one last time.
Many of the doctors and physical therapists that are here today are literally the same people that were working on me almost 9 years ago. It wasn't a hospital in the sense, it was a brotherhood that you walked into every day. No matter what avenue of the support, medically, occupational therapy-wise, physical therapy-wise, it was unfeathered, it was fettered. It was almost symbiotic at the same time, if you will.
Part of the beauty of being able to treat them in this environment is that their injuries are very similarly matched, and so it's things that we have done on a daily basis for the last several years and had very positive outcomes, and it creates a camaraderie for them within the clinic to be able to work out with those around them that are going through the same sorts of issues.
There is a lot of magic there that I don't know that can ever be captured on film. A lot of special interactions happen in there because of the therapist, because of the other patients in there.
I go there because I know that I'm going to get stronger and get better, that Kelly's going to help me problem solve whatever pain or discomfort I'm feeling. I know I'm not even really conscious of the fact that I'm working hard because I'm hanging out with all my friends who just make the day go by pretty easily, and you realize that you're bouncing back from something that would, to a lot of people, would seem incredibly arduous, and it is, but it's so much easier because you're doing it with a great group of people.
Physically and emotionally, they're leaps and bounds beyond where they were. Jess said that she was wearing her prosthesis 15-minute increments, and it's because she was in so much pain because of her sound side. And now she's able to wear her prostheses all day long without any problems. Well, they're both avid runners. Patrick's ran 8 miles the other day. Ridiculous.
The relationship that Laura and I now have with Jessica and Patrick is just unbelievable. I mean, I would have never guessed we would have become as close of friends as we have. And I would speak to the fact that I've been able to almost go full circle with my recovery, because the day I landed in Germany, I was being helped by civilian support. And then I get all the way to being able to now help a civilian through their catastrophic injuries. So I just can't even put a value on that. It's been so impactful.
I guess when I think of the day of the bombing and how much planning and hate went into that day and all the evilness, I feel like we found that counterbalance here at Walter Reed, and that all of the education and the planning and the hard work and the long days and the skipped lunches and the extra things you guys did for us outweighed the evil of that day. And that when people say we're so amazing and we're doing so good and look at them go, then it's because of all of you. And that we will never forget it, and that we don't know what we're doing next, but we know that we're going to be paying this back in some way. And as soon as we have our full strength and energy back, we're certainly going to figure out a way to do that. And it'll be an honor, really, of all of you. So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 2016 Heroes of Military Ambassadors Award honorees, Captain Ferris Butler, Patrick Downs, and Jessica Kinski.
How's everybody doing? So it's genuinely an honor to receive this award. It's quite incredible to be placed in the likeness of past recipients, and I know those recipients personally. The Woodruffs from last year were the first ambassador recipients, and the things they're doing across the nation for our civilians and military alike are phenomenal, to say the least. So to be compared to them is quite an honor. I want to make 3 points, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible. When I landed in Germany after being injured 21 December 2006, the military-civilian divide for me was completely erased. I was, at that point, catastrophic lower leg injuries, and at the same time being showered with Christmas gifts. It was such an odd feeling to be so far away, but getting, cards and handmade quilts and Christmas presents. This was Christmas 2006. It really kind of opened my eyes up to all these people back stateside were that compassionate about our troops, that they were sending all these things to Germany, even though we'd only be there a few days, so that we could make a more comfortable trip back stateside. And to further that point, I met my wife, who is a civilian volunteering at Walter Reed, as the Admiral mentioned earlier. Now, I met her the first week I was at Walter Reed. It did take me about 1.5 years to get her to agree to go out on a date with me, but it's a completely different story. So, but with that, she's fueled my passion for helping military and civilians alike ever since. She was there in her undergraduate studies doing things I never even thought about doing when I was in my undergraduate studies. The last point I would make there is that those things opened the path to not even questioning my thought process on trying to help Jessica and Patrick after I saw the need. I watched the Boston Marathon bombings live on TV before all the censorship occurred, and my heart just dropped that day for them, for everybody involved. And I knew I could do something for somebody, and it took over 1 year to end up being introduced to these two, but it wasn't even a question in my mind. It was, not if I was going to help, but what could I do and how fast could I do it? And with that, though, I would really like to accept this award, not just for myself in a singular fashion, but I'll give you some perfect examples of how these things occur. Jessica's sister, Sarah, was an intern at Walter Reed with one of my old occupational therapists, Orrin Gans, and they are the ones that called me and said, hey, will you talk to Jessica? So if they hadn't have made that connection over lunch one day or whatever it was, because Jessica and I had similar situations, then we would literally not be standing up here. I mean, it would not have happened. To further that point, the connections made with everybody that reached out to help. Jen Salvati's here from Veterans Airlift Command. I called this military nonprofit, started by a Vietnam veteran, totally military-centric. Within 5 minutes, I had Jessica and Patrick a flight to come down to Walter Reed to make their trip easier. I mean, it was just, everybody was so eager to reach out and help because everybody wanted to break down those military-civilian barriers because this was the right thing to do. And then, when I reached out to Dr. Potter, it was an immediate connection. It was, well, how fast can you get them down here? Oh, I can see them next week. I thought this would take years to happen. And within a week, we had them down in Maryland, giving them old Maryland hospitality. So with that, I'd like to introduce Patrick Downs, 2016 Boston Marathon finisher.
Little did we know that when 2 bombs went off on Boylston Street in Boston, that we would be surrounded by so much love. There were those 2 split seconds of hate that were immediately followed by a wave of love that we have ridden to this day. We knew that our families would be there. They're sitting there in the back, our siblings, our parents, our uncles, our aunts. To us, they were heroes. We knew that our communities from our high schools, BC High, right, General? Boston College, University of Arizona, Hopkins, we knew that those people, they knew us. We knew that they would look after us. But we did not expect to be waking up to Reveille at a military base at Walter Reed getting medical care, and yet we have. For the last year and a half, you all have extended your hearts, your expertise, your compassion to us. And every time we've met you, you have said that you have shown us and said to us that we are all humans and we need to look out for each other. And that has been the enduring message that we have received, that there are people in this world who have hate in their hearts, who will perpetrate violence, but they will never win in the long run. Peace and love and community will always rule the day. And I don't say that as a trite thing. I mean that from the bottom of our hearts, that we would not be here today with all of the love that has come our way. And we are so grateful to all of you and to our team at Walter Reed. And we accept this award with great humility, but also with the responsibility that we now have to make sure that all of those wounded warriors who we work out and recover alongside at Walter Reed, all the civilians who may come after us, that we look after them just as Captain Butler has looked after us, that we all owe that debt of gratitude and to pay it forward to those who come after us. And we are very welcome to accept that responsibility because you all have shown us that way, and we're very grateful for that. And with that, I'd like to introduce my very beautiful and very resilient bride, Jessica Kensky.
I was hoping to be a little more put together tonight. And I was really self-conscious about it, and not because I'm not used to people seeing me without any legs below the knee, but because I feel like me not triumphantly walking on stage tonight doesn't reflect the care and compassion and expertise that I've received at Walter Reed. I need Dr. Potter with my tissues right now. Because it doesn't, but also coming up here with one prosthetic on and one off and crutches in a wheelchair is actually a really honest moment about what it is like to recover from something like this. And it is incredibly long and incredibly emotional and incredibly hard. And it's one that I couldn't do without our friends and our family, without the luck of having Ferris Butler and Laura Butler in my life, who brought us to Walter Reed and to this amazing group of people who have just completely wrapped their arms around us. And when I think about, when I thought about coming here tonight, my dad's a doctor and I'm a nurse. And I remember playing on the room of his office, and there was a pin-pointed or stitch-pointed, I forget how you say it, picture on the wall. And the saying really kind of stuck with me tonight. And it's to cure sometimes, to heal often, and to comfort always. And I'm not asking anyone to cure me. I don't think that's possible. And a lot of healing does happen at Walter Reed and has happened with me. But I have always been comforted by the clinical team that we're going to introduce you to tonight. And I suppose that that's the message that I wanted to leave. So.
So we want to introduce four very, very special people to us, not only as clinicians, but as friends and as part of our family now. The first being Dr. Benjamin Kyle Potter, whose birthday is today, Cinco de Mayo baby. Dr. Kelly McGowie, who's our physical therapist, who kicks our tail every day for the last year and a half. Dr. Anne-Marie Orr, who has helped us navigate the world and overcome all the obstacles in our way. And Arthur Allen Molnar, our prosthetist, our leg maker. Sometimes he believes he's God a little bit because he gets to make body parts. These are incredibly beautiful and special people who not only look after us every day, but all of the beautiful men and women at Walter Reed.
Thank you, and congratulations, Ferris, Jessica, and Patrick. On behalf of the Henry M. Jackson Foundation for the Advancement of Military Medicine and its Center for Public-Private Partnerships, thank you for helping us honor our 2016 Heroes of Military Medicine. It's been my privilege to serve once again as your Master of Ceremonies. Please join me for one last round of applause for all of tonight's honorees. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for making this evening possible, and thanks to each of you for helping us celebrate some remarkable individuals. Please help yourselves to the centerpieces on the tables, drive safely, and join us again next year. Good night.